If she misses you, why doesn't she just say it? Why doesn't she pick up the phone, send that text, or make it obvious? Most men assume silence means she doesn't care. But that's rarely the full story. Silence is a language of its own. It's a shield, a strategy, and sometimes even a cry for control. In this video, we're going to break down exactly why women stay silent even when they miss you, what that quiet really reveals about her emotions, and how you can respond with calmness and self-mastery instead of panic or cussing. Because here's the truth. When you understand the psychology of her silence, you stop taking it personally and you start using it as fuel to stay grounded, confident, and unshakable. So, before we dive in, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this message today. Now, let's get into it. Number 1, pride over vulnerability. Pride over vulnerability 4. Many women admitting they miss you feels like lowering their guard. Pride whispers, "Don't let him see you weak." So instead of reaching out, she stays quiet even while her heart aches. What looks like indifference on the outside is often a storm of emotions on the inside. She scrolls through old messages but never presses send. She checks your profile but never leaves a trace. Share plays your words but never lets you know she's listening. That silence isn't because she forgot you. It's because admitting she still feels something would mean exposing herself to rejection or worse, to the idea that you've moved on without her. Think about it this way. Pride acts like armor. It protects her from appearing vulnerable, from giving you the impression that you still hold power over her heart. But that same armor is heavy, and it doesn't erase what she feels. Deep down, she may miss the way you listened, the way your presence brought calm, the way your steadiness made her feel safe. Yet pride convinces her that reaching out first is a sign of weakness, and so she swallows her words and chooses silence instead. From a Stoic perspective, this makes perfect sense. Pride, after all, is her way of trying to control what cannot truly be controlled, the perception of others. Epictetus once said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Her reaction in this case is to retreat into silence. She cannot stop missing you, but she can stop herself from showing it. And in that choice, she finds a sense of control, even if it costs her connection. As a man, this is where your mindset matters. The mistake most men make is believing her silence means she feels nothing. They rush to break the quiet, to demand clarity, to search for reassurance. But the Stoic path is different. A Stoic man doesn't get pulled into the whirlpool of another's pride. He doesn't let her silence dictate his peace of mind. Instead, he recognizes that her pride is hers to carry. Her silence is hers to choose, and his responsibility is to remain grounded. Marcus Aurelius put it best. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Her silence is outside of you. Your calm, your discipline, your focus that belongs to you. So when she stays quiet, don't mistake it for absence. It's pride holding her back, not indifference. And the more you stay rooted in your own strength, the more that silence weighs on her because she begins to realize that her pride is costing her the very presence she misses. That is the paradox. In trying not to look weak, she ends up feeling the ache even more. And you, by staying steady, reveal the rare strength of a man who doesn't need toe-chase validation to know his worth. Number 2, the illusion of control. The illusion of control. Sometimes silence is a game of control. She thinks staying quiet keeps her in power, makes you wonder, makes you chase. But in reality, silence reveals her own inner battle. On the surface, it looks like strategy. She withholds her words, ignores messages, and pretends she's unbothered, hoping that this silence will pull you closer. But beneath that exterior, there's usually a tug-of-war between her pride and her longing. Silence for her feels like a way to keep the upper hand, but it often leaves her more restless than you might imagine. Picture it like this. She scrolls through her phone at night, tempted to send you a message, but she convinces herself that holding back keeps her in control. She wants to know if you'll crack first, if you'll reach out, if your silence means you've forgotten her, or if it's just a test of wills. To her, not speaking feels like power. But the truth is, real power isn't about manipulation. It isn't about waiting for someone else to bend. It's about being centered enough that you don't need anyone to move for you to find peace. This is where a stoic man separates himself from the crowd. Most men panic under this kind of silence. They interpret it as rejection or indifference, and they rush to reestablish connection just to ease their own discomfort. But a stoic man doesn't need to play that game. He sees her silence for what it is, not a reflection of his worth, but a reflection of her state of mind. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." Her silence lies beyond your control. Her strategy, her pride, her attempts at control, none of that belongs to you. What belongs to you is your response. When you stay calm in the face of her silence, you flip the script. Suddenly, the silence she thought was her weapon becomes her burden. She expected you to chase, to seek validation, to play into her illusion of control, but instead, you remain steady, living your life, protecting your peace, and investing in your growth. That quiet strength unsettles her more than words ever could, because it shows her that the game she's playing only exists in her mind, not in yours. In the end, silence isn't control. It's a mask. And when you refuse to engage with it, the mask begins to crack. She realizes that withholding doesn't make you chase it, only makes you harder to reach. And that's when the weight of her silence turns inward, forcing her to confront her own feelings instead of hiding behind the illusion of power. So if you ever find yourself facing this kind of silence, remember, you don't need to win the game. You win simply by not playing it. That's the essence of stoic strength. Not bending to illusions, but standing firm in what's real. Take a moment to reflect on that. How different would your relationships look if you carried this kind of stillness every time? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, or simply type "silence doesn't control me" to remind yourself of this truth. And if this is hitting home, don't forget to like the video. It helps spread the message. And stay tuned as we dive deeper into what happens next. Fear of rejection. Number 3, fear of rejection. Even if she wants to reach out, fear often stops her. She worries you won't respond, or worse, you'll dismiss her. That fear of rejection feels heavier than missing you. Imagine her sitting with her phone in her hand, typing out a message, only to erase it before hitting send. In her mind, the risk of silence on your end or the sting of indifference is too much to bear. It's easier for her to hold back and stay quiet than to risk confirming her worst fear that maybe you've truly moved on, or maybe you no longer value her presence the way she still values yours. This fear of rejection can be paralyzing. Many times, it isn't about whether she misses you, because deep down she does. It's about the emotional risk tied to reaching out. To her, sending that first message feels like placing her heart in your hands again. And when pride and fear combine, silence becomes the safest choice, even though it's the most painful one. She convinces herself that by not speaking, she protects herself from disappointment. But in reality, the silence only deepens her longing, because every unspoken word builds up like pressure inside her chest. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Her fear of rejection is not rejection itself. It's her mind projecting possible outcomes, magnifying them until they feel unbearable. The silence she chooses isn't because she doesn't want to talk to you, but because she cannot overcome the weight of what might happen. In this way, she becomes a prisoner of her own thoughts. But here's the key. A stoic man views rejection through an entirely different lens. To him, rejection isn't a wound. It's information. It tells him the truth he needs to move forward instead of keeping him trapped in illusions. He doesn't see rejection as a verdict on his worth, but as clarity about the other person's state of mind. That shift in perspective is liberating because when you detach your identity from someone else's approval, you remove the chains that keep most men begging for validation. Think about how powerful it is to stand in that space. While she wrestles with silence, fearing the possibility of being turned away, you remain steady. You know that if she reaches out and you're not aligned anymore, that's not tragedy. It's simply life showing you where not to invest your energy. And if she doesn't reach out at all, you also don't crumble because your sense of peace was never tied to her actions to begin with. That's the courage of a stoic man. He would rather face the truth head-on than live clinging to illusions. He embraces clarity even if it stings for a moment because clarity is freedom. And when you embody that mindset, you no longer chase or fear rejection. You accept whatever comes, and in doing so, you rise above it. That steadiness not only protects your peace, but also makes you the kind of man she finds unforgettable because you are unshaken by the very fear that keeps her silent. Number 4, testing your resolve. Testing your resolve. Sometimes silence isn't about missing you. It's about testing you. She wants to see if you'll break the quiet first. If your emotions are still in her hands, it's less about communication and more about control. By not reaching out, she creates a pause, a gap, a moment where she can measure your response. Will you rush in to fill the void? Will you panic at the silence and seek her validation? Or will you remain still, steady, and untouched by her test? For many women, this is a way of finding out whether the bond between you is fueled by genuine strength or by your fear of losing her. You've probably seen this play out before. She ignores your message for hours, then waits to see how quickly you double text. She stays quiet for days, hoping you'll break first and flood her inbox with apologies or confessions of how much you miss her. And if you do, in her mind, it confirms that she still holds the upper hand. Her silence then wasn't about forgetting you. It was about drawing out proof that she's still in control of your emotions. But this is where a stoic man shines. He doesn't see silence as a problem to be solved, but as a chance to practice patience and self-mastery. The Stoics taught that discipline over your impulses is true freedom. And this is the perfect example. Most men react instinctively. They can't bear the discomfort of silence, so they move quickly to break it. But a man rooted in Stoic principles understands that reacting too quickly is a kind of surrender. It says you still control me, and once you hand over that power, it's hard to take it back. Patience then becomes your greatest weapon. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but your estimate of it." Her silence isn't pain. It's only silence. The suffering comes from how you interpret it. If you see it as rejection, you'll scramble. If you see it as a test, you'll feel pressured to pass. But if you see it simply as armament of stillness, you reclaim your power. You are no longer forced to respond on her timeline. You choose your response when it aligns with your peace, not her expectations. Think of stillness as your shield. In the face of her silence, you don't flinch. You don't rush. You don't crumble. Instead, you wait. Not out of spite, not out of ego, but out of strength. Your calm response, or even your lack of response, carries a message louder than any words. You are not controlled by her tests. You remain steady on your path, disciplined in your emotions, patient in your silence. And ironically, this is when her silence backfires. The moment she realizes that you're not rushing to break it, she begins to feel the weight of it herself. What was meant to test your resolve ends up testing hers. She starts wondering why you haven't reached out, whether you've moved on, whether her silence means she's losing the very presence she wanted to measure. In trying to test you, she ends up testing herself. That's the beauty of Stoic patience. By not reacting, you transform silence from her weapon into your strength. And in doing so, you show her something rare. A man who doesn't bend under pressure, but becomes sharper in it. Number 5. Social appearances, social appearances. For some women, silence is about image. She worries what friends or family will say if she reaches out. Reputation feels more important than honesty. In her world, appearances can carry more weight than truth. Even if she misses you deeply, even if her heart aches to connect, the thought of what others might think holds her back. Maybe she told her friends she was done with you for good. Or maybe she painted herself as the one who made the stronger choice. Reaching out now in her mind would mean admitting she was wrong, and that can feel like humiliation. This pressure often comes from social circles that quietly influence her actions. A friend might say, "Don't text him first. You'll look desperate." A family member might remind her of past mistakes, fueling her hesitation. And so she stays silent, not because she doesn't feel anything, but because the image she's created feels too fragile to risk cracking. To her, silence preserves dignity in the eyes of others, even though it costs her peace in the privacy of her own thoughts. You might notice this when she posts carefully curated pictures online. They aren't just for herself, they're for the audience she's trying to impress. She wants her friends to believe she's thriving, that she's unbothered, that life without you is smooth and easy. But the truth is, those posts are often more performance than reality. Social appearances become a mask, and silence is the glue that holds it in place. By not reaching out, she keeps the illusion intact. From a Stoic perspective, this is exactly why appearances hold so little value. The Stoics taught that reputation, gossip, and other people's opinions fall into the category of externals, things you cannot truly control. Seneca once wrote, "A good character once established is not easily overthrown." What he meant is this: if you live with integrity, if you act in alignment with your principles, no amount of gossip or image shaping can shake who you are. Reputation may shift like the wind, but character stands firm. For a man, this distinction is powerful. While she may be trapped by appearances, you don't have to be. You don't need to prove yourself on social media. You don't need to argue with her friends. You don't need to defend yourself against whispers. Your focus should remain on what is within your control, your actions, your discipline, your peace of mind. When you anchor yourself in that steadiness, you naturally rise above the noise. And here's the irony: the very silence she chooses to protect her image often ends up betraying her. Because when a woman is quiet for too long, the people around her begin to notice the cracks. They see the hesitation, the late-night scrolling, the way she perks up when your name is mentioned. Appearances cannonly cover so much, and the truth eventually leaks through. Meanwhile, your silence carries no such burden. You're not protecting an image. You're protecting your integrity. And that makes all the difference, because in the end, appearances fade, but character remains. And when she finally looks past the opinions of others, it's your inner strength, the quiet calm of a stoic man that lingers in her mind far longer than any reputation ever could. Her silence may look like strength, but in reality, it's often a shield built for others, not for herself. And that's where you, as a man grounded in stoic principles, find your edge. You don't need to wear a mask for anyone. Instead, you can stand firm in your character, unaffected by gossip or outside opinions. Now, I'd like to hear your perspective. Have you ever seen someone hide behind appearances while struggling inside? Share your thoughts in the comments, or if you want to keep it simple, just type character over image. And as we move forward, let's dive even deeper into what her silence is really saying. Number 6, unfinished anger. Unfinished anger. Sometimes she stays silent, not because she doesn't miss you, but because she's still angry. She may be replaying past frustrations, holding on to resentment even while longing for you. Silence in this case becomes her way of punishing both herself and you at the same time. She doesn't reach out because every time she thinks about doing so, memories of past arguments or disappointments rise to the surface and cloud her desire to reconnect. It's as if her heart says, "I miss him." But her pride and anger shout back, "Don't you dare!" This kind of silence often feels heavier than indifference. Anger is an active emotion. It burns, it churns, it demands energy. When she holds on to it, she reels old moments as if they're happening all over again. Maybe she replays the words you said in a heated moment, twisting them in her memory until they sting sharper than they did at the time. Maybe she recalls the times she felt misunderstood or unseen and lets those memories harden into reasons for staying quiet. And yet underneath all that fire, there's still longing. She misses the comfort, the laughter, the steadiness you once brought. That's the conflict. Her silence isn't about absence of feeling, it's about too many feelings colliding at once. Here's where Stoicism provides clarity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it?" What he meant is that anger itself usually causes more damage than whatever sparked it in the first place. For her, staying silent out of anger may feel like control, but in reality, it deepens her suffering. She holds herself hostage to old emotions, unable to move forward or reconnect. Silence becomes her cage, not her freedom. And this is the key. Lesson for you as a man. You cannot let her unfinished anger dictate your peace. A stoic man understands that anger, whether it's his own or someone else's, is a temporary fire. It flares up, burns bright, and eventually cools into ashes. It is not eternal truth. It does not define the relationship, nor does it define you. That's why a stoic doesn't respond to silent anger with chaos. He doesn't chase to soothe her. He doesn't lash back in frustration, and he doesn't crumble under the weight of her silence. Instead, he remains still, recognizing that her storm is hers to weather. Think of it this way. If you pour fuel into her fire by reacting, the blaze only grows stronger. But if you stand calm and steady like a stone in the middle of a river, the current of her anger eventually flows around you and weakens. Your refusal to be provoked becomes the very thing that restores balance. And over time, as her anger cools, what remains is the undeniable truth she tried to bury that beneath the frustration. She still misses you. So when you encounter her silence rooted in unfinished anger, don't see it as rejection. See it as a passing storm. Don't let her fire set your world ablaze. Hold to your calm. Protect your peace. And remember, her silence may be loud today, but anger always fades. And when it does, the memory of your steadiness will echo louder than any argument you ever had. Hoping you'll move first. Number 7, hoping you'll move first. Her silence might be less about strength and more about hope. She wants you to break the ice so she can feel reassured that you still care. This isn't always about power, pride, or anger. It's about a quiet longing for confirmation. She may be lying awake at night, scrolling through your old conversations, feeling that urge to reach out. But she convinces herself if he misses me too, he'll be the one to send the first message. It's her way of protecting her heart. By waiting on you, she avoids the risk of rejection, yet still clings to the possibility of reconnection. Think of it like a stalemate in chess. She doesn't want to expose her queen, her vulnerability. So, she leaves the board untouched, hoping you'll make the next move. In her mind, if you reach out first, it proves you still care, and that reassurance feels safer than her taking the risk. But there's the irony. While she hopes for your message, every day you don't send one makes her question her assumptions. Silence, which she expected would draw you closer, begins to turn into doubt, and doubt can become regret. This is where Stoicism speaks the loudest. The Stoics taught that chasing what lies outside of your control leads to misery, while embracing clarity leads to peace. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." Her silence is beyond your control. Her hope, her hesitation, her desire for you to move first, all of that belongs to her, not to you. The only thing that belongs to you is your response. And a stoic man doesn't chase comfort. He doesn't try to soothe his own ego by breaking the silence just to feel wanted. Instead, he embraces clarity. If silence is all she offers, then silence is your answer. Now, this doesn't mean indifference. It means strength. By not rushing to fill the silence, you show that your self-worth isn't dependent on whether she offers reassurance. You demonstrate that you are willing to face the truth, whatever it may be, rather than living in a fantasy. Most men crumble here. They send the first text, hoping to reignite what's fading, only to find themselves back in the same cycle of doubt and imbalance. But the Stoic man knows that true connection cannot be forced. If her silence continues, it reveals more than words ever could. And here's the deeper truth. When you refuse to move first, the weight shifts back to her. She has to decide whether her hope is strong enough to overcome her hesitation. She has to face her own silence and ask herself, am I willing to lose him just to protect my pride? That's the turning point where longing often outweighs fear. So remember this, silence can feel uncomfortable, but comfort is not your goal. Clarity is, if she truly values your presence, she will break her own silence. And if she doesn't, then her silence was the answer you needed all along. That's not loss, that's freedom. And a free man, guided by Stoic steadiness, never fears the truth. It's at this point where the lesson turns inward. Ask yourself, how do you usually respond to silence? Do you rush to break it, or can you sit with it and let it reveal the truth on its own? A Stoic man understands that reflection is more valuable. Then reaction and clarity always outweighs comfort. Before we move forward, I'd like you to pause for a moment and think about this in your own life. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe silence speaks louder than words? Or have you seen how it shifts the balance in a relationship? Your perspective might help another brother watching this right now. The battle of ego number 8. The battle of ego. Ego tells her, if he misses me, he'll come to me. That belief keeps her waiting even while she suffers in quiet. Ego convinces her that silence is strength, that not reaching out keeps her in control, that if you truly cared, you would be the one to bridge the gap. But the irony is that ego is never about real strength. It's about appearances, illusions, and fear of vulnerability. She may check her phone dozens of times a day, hoping for your name to appear on the screen. But her ego whispers, don't you dare move first. Make him prove it. And so she waits, trapped in a cycle of longing mixed with pride. This is why ego is such a powerful trap. It doesn't just keep her silent, it also keeps her suffering. Instead of honesty, she chooses pride. Instead of peace, she chooses performance. On the outside, she may look calm and detached. But on the inside, she feels the ache of absence, the weight of words left unsaid, the sting of nights spent wondering if you've already forgotten her. Ego tells her she's winning, but in reality, it's the very thing keeping her from what she desires most. As a man, you have to understand how dangerous ego can be, not just hers, but yours as well, because ego can whisper to you too, prove her wrong, show her you don't need her, win the silence. But the Stoic man doesn't bow to ego, neither hers nor his own. He doesn't chase validation, and he doesn't fight for the illusion of control. Instead, he practices mastery of himself. He sees ego for what it is, a chain that binds, not a crown that empowers. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." Ego is that craving. It always wants more proof, more control, more reassurance. And the more you give in to it, the weaker you become. That's why the Stoic man chooses a different path. He doesn't need her to move first, nor does he need to break the silence just to soothe his pride. His worth isn't measured by who texts first, who bends, or who wins the game. His worth is rooted in his discipline, his peace, his clarity. Here's the truth. When you master your own ego, Hersilence loses its power over you. What once felt like a test now feels like a mirror, revealing that she is still bound by pride while you are free. Here go keeps her waiting, but your self-mastery keeps you moving forward. And that difference is everything, because the man who is free from ego cannot be manipulated, cannot be shaken, and cannot be forgotten. So let her ego hold her silent, if it must. Your role is not to fight in that battle, but to rise above it. While she carries the chains of her pride, you carry the calm of a man who has mastered himself. And in the end, that contrast speaks louder than any silence ever could. Number 9. Confusion about her own. Confusion about her own feelings. Not every silence is a strategy. Sometimes she truly doesn't know what she wants. She misses you, but doubts herself. She's caught between longing and hesitation. In her quiet moments, she might feel a wave of nostalgia, a memory of your voice, a scene replaying in her mind, the comfort of the way you made her feel, and yet almost immediately doubt creeps in. What if I'm just lonely? What if I'm remembering only the good and ignoring the bad? What if he's moved on already? These conflicting thoughts create a fog, where silence becomes the safest choice. She doesn't reach out, not because she doesn't feel, but because she doesn't trust what she feels. This kind of silence is one of the most confusing for men. It isn't fueled by ego, pride, oranger. It's fueled by uncertainty. She stands at an emotional crossroads, torn between the pull of the past and the fear of the future. On one hand, she longs for the comfort of reconnecting, for the reassurance that what you shared still has weight. On the other hand, she doubts herself, worries she might regret reaching out, or questions whether the connection was ever as strong as her memory paints it. In that tension, silence feels like the only way to buy time. But here's the lesson. Confusion doesn't make her silence easier to deal with. In fact, it can make it harder because it leaves you guessing, too. Many men fall into the trap of demanding clarity from women. In these moments, they press for answers, push for communication, and insist on knowing where they stand. But this is where Stoicism separates the ordinary man from the rare one. A Stoic man doesn't demand clarity from others. He creates it within himself. He understands that here uncertainty is not his burden to carry. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Her silence born from confusion belongs to the category of outside events. It is not within your control. What is within your control? How shall you respond to it? Instead of chasing answers from her, you root yourself in your own. You decide what you want, how you will act, and what standards you will uphold, regardless of her hesitation. Imagine the difference this makes. While she wrestles with doubts, you stand steady. While she circles between missing you and questioning herself, you move with clarity in your own direction. You're not harsh, you're not cold, you're simply calm. That calmness is rare. Most men spiral into frustration or desperation when faced with a woman's uncertainty. But the Stoic man accepts that uncertainty is part of life, and he doesn't let it disrupt his balance. And here's the paradox. Your steadiness often becomes the very thing that pulls her out of confusion. When she sees that you don't beg for clarity, but embody it, she's drawn to that strength. Your silence, guided by discipline rather than fear, shows her what she's missing. And in time, her hesitation becomes harder to maintain because the contrast between her uncertainty and your stability grows impossible to ignore. So remember this, not every silence is agame. Sometimes, it's simply a reflection of her inner fog. But your role is not to walk into that fog with her. Your role is to remain the lighthouse on the shore, steady, unmoved, and clear, so that when she's ready to see through the haze, she knows exactly where. The light is time as a weapon. Number 10, time as a weapon. She may believe time is on her side, that the longer she stays silent, the more likely you are to bend. Silence stretches into days, weeks, sometimes months. meant to weaken you, to wear down your patience, to make you question your own worth. In her mind, time becomes a silent pressure, a tool that will eventually push you into chasing her, into proving that you still care. She convinces herself, if I wait long enough, he'll give in. But what she doesn't realize is that time cuts both ways. For many men, this is where the struggle feels unbearable. Each day of silence can feel like an eternity. You wake up wondering if today will be the day she finally reaches out, and when nothing happens, frustration creeps in. The silence feels heavy, and the passing of time turns into doubt. Maybe she's forgotten me. Maybe she never cared at all. That's exactly how she expects you to feel. She believes the weight of time will eventually break you. But this is where a stoic man transforms the battlefield. Time, instead of becoming your enemy, becomes your greatest ally. The Stoics understood that endurance isn't just surviving, it's strengthening. Epictetus taught that difficulty is what shapes character, and Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that pain is not eternal. Only perception makes it so. When you approach time with this mindset, silence is no longer a threat. Every day you remain calm and disciplined. You harden your resolve. Every week that passes, without you breaking down, your silence grows heavier, not on you, but on her. Think of it like training in the gym. At first, holding the weight is painful. Your muscles ache. Your body protests and you want to quit. But with each repetition, each set, your strength increases. The same is true with silence. The longer you hold it, not out of stubbornness, but out of discipline, the stronger you become. What was once unbearable transforms into second nature. You no longer wake up counting the days of her absence. Instead, you use those days to invest in yourself, to sharpen your focus, to grow in ways that make her silence irrelevant. And here's the irony. While she hoped time would weaken you, it begins to work against her. Because as the days pass, she starts to feel the echo of your absence. She expected your patience to crumble, but instead it becomes unshakable. She expected you to chase, but instead you're building yourself into someone even more formidable. Her silence, stretched by time, no longer feels like control. It feels like loss. That's the hidden lesson in this game of waiting. She may try to wield time as a weapon, but the Stoic man knows how to reverse it. He endures. He grows. He embraces the truth that time doesn't weaken the disciplined, it exposes the undisciplined. And in the end, your calm silence becomes far louder than her prolonged absence ever could. So when you feel the weight of days turning into weeks, remember time isn't testing you, it's training you. And the man who endures without breaking is the man who cannot be forgotten. Silence in the end is never just the conclusion, absence of words. It's a language of its own. It carries pride, fear, ego, confusion, and longing all at once. And while she may use it as a shield, as a weapon, or as a test, you've seen how much it truly reveals about her inner world. For the Stoic man, her silence is not something to fear or fight. It's something to observe with calm clarity. Because the moment you understand that her silence reflects her battles, not your worth, you gain freedom. You stop chasing answers outside of you, and instead you build strength within you. That steadiness, that rare calm in the middle of chaos is what makes you unforgettable. If this message spoke to you, brother, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Which part of this video resonated with you the most? Drop a comment below and share your perspective. Don't forget to hit that like button if you found value here. It helps. Spread this lesson to more men who need it. And if you want to keep sharpening your mindset and learning how Stoic principles apply to real-life relationships, stick around and watch the recommended videos on your screen. Until next time, stay disciplined, stay grounded, and protect your peace.